Good afternoon, good evening. Hello, this is Kevin again from Personal Tutors, explaining to you a beautiful poem about childhood by Markus Natten. This is a poem in the syllabus of NCERT 11th standard, and it brings out the beauty of a person missing his childhood and seeking where it has gone. It's a poem that explains a child's mind changing into an adult and realizing the things that they have been hearing and listening to by the parents. I'll read a brief line and explain. When did my childhood go? Was it the day I ceased to be living? Was it the time I realized that hell and heaven could not be found in geography and therefore could not be? What was that day? The poet explains missing his childhood today. He does not know the boundary that when did his childhood leave him? When did he turn out to become a man? I had read somewhere, my friends, that the age between 9 to 11 is the age that the childhood leaves and the human mind starts to think. As a student, you must have realized it, that the age of 9 and 11 brings a transformation in everyone's life, including mine and yours as well. Thus, the poet asks, was it the day I ceased to be 11, that is, he was turning 12-year old, and his childhood had gone, it seemed. It was the day that he realized that the concept of heaven and hell is nowhere to be found in the book of maps or the subject called geography, yet thus explaining it to be a metaphor given to them by adults. Thus, he is a bit saddened. Again he says, when did my childhood go? Was it the time I realized that adults were not all they seemed to be? They talked of love and preached of love, but did not act so lovingly. Was that the day? Here the poet critically hits upon the adults who had during his whole childhood explained him to love one another, to have peace and harmony, yet they single-handedly do not practice the teachings that they give out to the children today. The poet finds that the adults who have been teaching them a lesson to love one another are not practicing it on themselves. They are fighting around, they have got grudges, they keep on cursing, and it's evident, my friends. Thus, the poet once again asks, was that the day when I realized that the adults are no more the adults who preach, because their preaching is different from their practices? Again he says, when did my childhood go? Was it when I found my mind was really mine? To use whichever way I chose, producing thoughts that were not those of other people, but my own and mine alone. Was that the day? My friends, when we were kids, it happened that we were explained and thoughts were impregnated in our minds by our parents and adults. Remember, you don't have to go there. There's a big baba going on there. You don't have to run around because you'll be getting hit. You'll be getting hurt. And we actually used to believe in them. We believed that whatever adults said was truth because we were scared. We found solace in them, yet the poet explains that the solace seems to be vague, as the people who are preaching themselves are not practicing the things. The poet realizes that once he is grown, his mind starts to explore. A childhood mind or a baby's mind is a beautiful thought which is filled with conceptions that are instilled by the adults around him. A baby does not think. They do not have a mind of their own. I've been letting this line since a long time. Kids do not have a mind of their own. They are instilled by the thoughts given by adults. Yes, becoming an adult gives you freedom of thought. Your minds start to explore. They evaluate things. We start judging people. That's where the childhood is lost. The last lines are the most beautiful lines I have ever read in any poem, my friends. It is, where did my childhood go? The metaphor now goes, if you can see in the poem, the poet is all the time asking, when did my childhood go? But in the last lines, he asks, he questions us, where did my childhood go? It went to some forgotten place that is hidden in an infant's face. That's all I know. Beautifully written, beautifully explained, my friends. The poet asks, he misses his childhood badly. He asks, where did my childhood go? To some forgotten place? A place that we do not know, that is hidden in an infant's face. Friends, let's hold a baby in our hands, a kid, and just look at his eyes. It gives us a feeling, a sacredness, a sanctity, a serenity. That's what an infant's face depicts in this poem here. The poet explains the beauty of an infant compared to the childhood. He is incidentally explaining the childhood to be the most beautiful thing he had ever had, yet it's lost and gone. That's all I know. Let's have a look at some question and answers if we have any. Here. So the question and answers here go, what according to the poem is involved in the process of growing up? Oh, that's a big question to explain. According to the poet here, during the process of growing up, a child encounters harsh realities around him. He comes to know that whatever he was being taught while he was a kid seems to be vague enough, since the lesson of loving each other is not practiced by the adults today. The thoughts that were given to him in his mind were just instilled, whence he was not able to explore himself. A grown-up individual understands the logic of life and the society, whereas to a child, the logic of life is just living it out. For an adult, the logic of life changes pretty badly. The process of growing up also involves a teary fact of losing the beautiful childhood that each and every one of us had, that is long lost. At times people wonder if they could get their childhood back, the beauty, the serenity, the peace, but it never seems to happen. Thus Markus Natten here beautifully explains the missing of the childhood that he once had. What is the poet's feeling towards childhood? Again, he indicates the childhood to be naive and does not understand hypocrisy involved. Hypocrisy here explains the dubious attitude of adults. On the other hand, they ask the kids to preach and practice, but to the contrary, they themselves are not enacting in the same manner. Childhood is a place or a time or a space or a notion here that does not involve pains of life. It just requires living. It's beautifully explained in the poem if you read between the lines. Now, the next question would be, which do you think are the most poetic lines in the poem? As I said, the most beautiful and the most poetically depicted lines ever are in this poem. There are quite a number of sonnets, numerous phrases, yet the one that we may strike in the 11th class syllabus today here would be, it went to some forgotten place that's hidden in an infant's face. That's all I know. I've memorized these lines, my friends, because bottom there somewhere, we too miss our childhoods at time. Thus, it was a beautiful depiction of the long lost childhood by Markus Natten. If you have any questions about this special chapter, just comment below. If you want to know something about personal tutors, you can just click the button about us. You can subscribe our channel for more updates. We can provide you data online or in pen drives as per request as well. So please do comment and let us know more. Thanking you very much today.